There's a House bill out there, House Bill 166, that would I'll let Charity explain it, but I think the broader picture here is that, have you ever wondered how newspapers are still surviving in Idaho when you have all this digital, all the, you have the internet, we have us here, you've got all sorts of different news outlets and everything. You've got X, you've got Facebook, and the way that news moves all around. How is it that newspapers are still surviving? Well, there might be some subsidizing going on. Perhaps, we don't know. But Charity Joy joins us now. She's from the Kootenai Journal, the editor-in-chief, owner, all the big things about Kootenai Journal. Great independent journalist. Charity, it's good to see you. Walk us through here a little bit about House Bill 166 and why it's of interest to you as well.
Well, it's of interest to me because I happen to be a competitor to what they call the papers of record. And really what it does is, back in the day before internet existed, and really before the evolution of how internet exists now, which is quite a bit different than it was even 5 years ago, when the state put in mandates for legal notices, both from public entities and private entities, they required certain statutes be met and certain requirements be met so that there's actually notice going out to the public. And at the time that it was put into place, they wanted the mechanism that would reach the most people. And so they have certain requirements on what makes a paper, a newspaper, the print paper, a paper of record. And that is where all legal notices must go to maintain the legal qualifications for the notice. Well, what was really interesting in committee on this particular bill was when Representative Heather Scott pointed out that less than 4% of adult Idahoans actually get a subscription newspaper in print.
4%?
Lots of access online to stuff, but not in print. And then additionally to that, she pointed out that it's very difficult to read what is published, and that while all of these newspapers do put the legal notices on their websites without a paywall, you have to go to all of the different websites to access it. Their filters are not good. It's hard to actually bring up stuff. And so what this legislation does is it would take all of those legal notices from both public and private, place it on the state comptroller's website with great navigability. I don't think I said that word right, but that's okay. And then it would function the same way as giving proper legal notice for everything. And the state comptroller would not charge public or private entities for this. It would be fully funded by the state. Now, some people have said this grows government. I disagree. When government creates a mandate, which is a mandate to present a legal notice to the public, they are then obligated, in my opinion, to provide the most cost efficient, the most transparent, and the most accessible to the public way of them meeting that mandate. Well, we're in the 21st century with everybody accessing everything online. I believe Rep. Heather Scott also pointed out that 84% or 85% of Idahoan families have access to the internet in their home. So anyways,
and even more so
passionate about this. So ask me another question.
I was going to say, and even more so, most people have a cell phone too, which also has internet access too, which makes it even
exactly. And that shoots it up even higher.
Yeah, and I want to go back to the term paper of record, because I think before I ever heard or before this bill, I had always assumed that the paper of record was just a term that people would use for like legacy media, like the New York Times is the paper of record.
Actually,
but that's actually a defined term in our statutes.
It is, yes, and there are certain requirements that have to be met. You have to be a weekly publication. You have to be a weekly publication without interruption for a set period of time. And then you have to battle it out with the other newspapers in the area for who can prove they have the most subscribers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Now,
so that's interesting too, because right now, like you said, did you say that only 4% of and that's across Idaho?
That was the stat that Representative Scott presented in committee. Yeah. I don't know her reference point for that, but she's usually very accurate when she presents that kind of information.
Sure. So 4% of Idahoans get a paper
Yes.
mailed to their house.
Yes.
We really don't know how many people, make it a daily thing to buy it at the
Right.
donut shop or whatever. But
Right.
those are out there too. That aside, that's probably less.
Now, there was discussion in the committee about how, this isn't opinion stuff. The newspapers do not, control the information in the public notices. And while that is completely true, they do not print these public notices separate from their editorials or their news. It's all combined into one print publication. So the payments for those, and even classified ads, but that's not what we're talking about. The legal notices, payments for those subsidize the printing costs and the operational costs of placing all of the opinion and the news articles out at the same time.
Yeah. Do we know how much that costs? Do we know how much?
So I know that it costs the state, based on the bill sponsors, fiscal note, that it costs a little over $1 million for just the state. That does not count other taxing entities. Look at Kootenai County. We have over 30 taxing entities. All of them have to place public notices. Then this doesn't, what's no one's been talking about really that I can tell is the cost to private. So the state is mandating that private entities pay a separate private entity to post a legal notice. So there's actually more funds being generated for the newspapers from the private people that have to pay than from the public.
Wow. Yeah.
I can tell you personally, I have been contacted by people who want to place legal notices. And when I tell them that it won't suffice for what they want to do, that they will have to go to the paper of record, several have thanked me for the information. Other ones have gotten perturbed because they don't want to fund the particular publication that is the paper of record. Because let's be frank, in Idaho, it's a legacy, Marxist-driven agenda. And Amen. I mean, we can't get around that. It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. So up here in Kootenai County, you got the CDA Press. And would that cover, what's the paper of record in Bonner County? Would it be
I'm not sure. I think it is an extension of the Hagedorn Corporation owns multiple. So
that's a good point.
20 some newspapers that they publish, and I'm sure their papers of record multiple places.
Right. Yeah. And then of course down south, it's Idaho Press or the Idaho Statesman, or do they have to fight it out between the two of them?
I've not checked down there which one is the actual paper of record.
But it can only be one of them, right?
It can only be one in a certain geographical area.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then out east, maybe it's the East Idaho Times or whatever you call it.
You know what's nice about this legislation? It doesn't force people to stop using the print. It says they have the option to use the comptroller's database for it. But they can still choose to, if they want to, support that newspaper and print it legally there.
So some of the pushback that I've seen in committee from some good legislators has been the fact that that they're more worried about having these notices published on a government website because then government is controlling the government.
That's ridiculous. Government controls all their transparency. I mean, I don't understand that logic at all. I think it's false. So you're mentioning a certain representative, Joe Alfieri, said this in committee that he doesn't trust government, and for that purpose he's voting against this. Well, that you have to put some kind of substantiation behind that. Otherwise, you're eroding trust in all government. And I'll go back to the point where the state mandates this. So if you don't trust government, then get rid of the mandate. If you're going to have the mandate, then you're going to have to trust some mechanism for providing that it's done correctly.
Right. And then just, I guess, a little bit of just of my naivete here. What exactly would constitute a public notice? I've seen public notices that say like so-and-so is doing business as this, or we are having we're doing.
You mean who has to place the public notice?
Yeah. And what is it? And why would we be nefarious if a government,
Okay, so it's, for instance, if you are going to put something on the ballot for a levy, then there's certain statutory requirements for how early you have to tell people about it and how many times you have to tell people about it. Same goes for public meetings. So they have to post an agenda, and they can't alter that agenda. If they do, then they have to renotice it. within certain timeframes. So it can be complicated. There are a lot of different statutes that speak to it. It's separate for private than it is for public. It is an important function. I'm not saying get rid of public notices or legal notices. We have to have those when you're doing lawsuits against each other, or when there's an arrest warrant. When there's all sorts of different things where public notice is crucial. It's important. Now, there was another point of negativity on this bill by another representative who happens to be my representative, who I really like. And in committee, I'm like text yelling at him, right? Because he voted against it in committee. And I told him, he argued that there you go, our favorite Vito Barbieri. He's fantastic. He chairs the transportation committee. But he said that it's important to have the archive. Well, while I would agree archives are really great, that is not the purpose of this particular function and the government mandate. It is not a mandate from the government for archives. It is a mandate for immediate and accessible public notices of legal things. So it's actually better to move it to a really well done, accessible, one location website like the comptroller. There was someone else that said, I'd like to see the counties do this. Why do we have to do it at the state level? Well, for one thing, the counties are an extension of the state, right? We have 44 different counties. Why would I want to go to 44 separate websites, which are all different? I don't know if you've been on county websites, but they can be extremely different from each other, and try to dig through everything. That is even less efficient. So if that was an option, if this bill said every county should do this, I would oppose it, because it would actually be less effective.
Yeah. Well, this is fascinating. I think, when it comes, the big picture for me is how much money is being sent.
So much money.
And I'll say forced, like it's being forced to be sent to these papers of record.
It is literally subsidizing them. Yes.
Yeah.
And it puts small people and enterprises like myself at a disadvantage. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What if they changed the rule and said you just put it in any paper?
I would still favor the present legislation, the H166.
Okay.
Because what's the purpose of it? That's what we need to remember, what the purpose is of these legal notices. The purpose is not to, a fund. And plus, may I add, how can you be a free and independent press if you can't operate without government funds? That is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But what it does is it segregates the information, it disperses it over multiple platforms, which makes it more difficult for the public to have that notice. So if the goal is to give really quick, accurate information to the public, it just makes sense. I think this is smart.
Yeah.
Or as Trump would say, common sense, people.
Common sense, people. Yeah, common sense. All right. Well, anything that takes a bite out of the legacy media and their ability to just keep lying to us and spinning the story.
I couldn't agree more.
I'm all for. All right, Charity. Well, let's put up your details. Where can people find you? We got your website up there. Where can people find you and get connected with the Kootenai Journal? So
Kootenai Journal has no payroll. You're welcome. You can access everything without a paywall. You can subscribe to get the printed newspaper, which prints the first Tuesday of every month, mailed directly to you. But it's KootenaiJournal.com. Super easy. If you know how to spell Kootenai, you don't even know how to pronounce it, it's fine. Just spell it right. KootenaiJournal.com.
Fantastic. All right, Charity. Well, good to see you. I want to have you back. I want to talk about the judges situation.
Oh my gosh.
Great article on the judges situation.
Thank you.
So we'll have Alman on too about that. So
thank you and great work.
Yes. Thank you. Same to you. Take care.
Bye.